Story 1. I've always put my socks on by standing on one leg and then the other, telling myself when I can no longer do that, I would be old. A couple of months ago, one morning, I started to put them on the usual way and kept failing. So I just said to myself, forget it, and sat in a chair. So I guess I'm old now. I did make it to 74, though, before I was defeated. Story 2. When my 20-something-year-old coworkers started treating me like a cool auntie rather than a peer, I was surprised. I'm only 36 and am completely happy to be a cool auntie, but it shook me a little when I noticed it. Story 3. I ordered a pizza and the delivery guy was late. No big deal, I chatted with him and mentioned I know what it's like. I used to work at the same pizza place he did. He said something like, yeah, it was probably a lot different when you were my age. Bam. I'm now the old guy. Story 4. You know when, on some phone applications, you have to enter your year of birth? The selector icon is sometimes a scrolling wheel that goes click for each year starting at the current one. Me. Click, 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 click. Story 5. It's a gradual thing and covers many facets of body and mind. For me, one of the first permanent signs of aging was not being able to run as long or as fast as I once could, or recovery being difficult around the age of 30. That has progressed to not being able to run much at all, thanks to my knees finally giving up from playing football. My physical appearance held up until my early 40s. Then the shape of my face began to change, as did my body. My eyes dulled and changed color. Some hair loss accelerated into a lot. I was very much an older version of myself. Experiencing my vision decline significantly around 40 was also a major sign, especially as the optician warned me it would degrade further until I'm 60. The first time someone gave up their seat for me. The cultural references I grew up with have lost much of their meaning, with people in their 20s and early 30s in my workplace just having no idea what I am talking about half the time. As I approach my 50s, I've just had my first proper health scare, a basal cell carcinoma, as payback for all that fun I had in the sun in my youth. My neck now has a scar as a very visible reminder of my mortality. It is literally downhill from here. Story 6. When the media started talking about a hot new actor or actress, instead of agreeing that they were attractive, I noted that they were half my age. Also, Formula One drivers look like literal children. Story 7. The face I see in pictures is not the face I see in the mirror. What's worse is that I've maintained my body for many years, so now I have an old face on top of what looks like a young body. It's a struggle and requires working harder and harder to maintain. Eventually, they will match. Aging is cruel. If only our body and face matched the inner youth we all feel inside. Story 8. What the actual? I'm 62 and still having a blast. I ride my bicycle if I feel like exercising, but I drink and smoke weed. I go out on dates 3 or 4 times a week. I refuse to get old. Story 9. I wasn't looking at the TV when the announcer mentioned Lainey Wilson and Jelly Roll were the halftime performance and had to look up if Jelly Roll was her band or a separate performer. They also said the next game featured Shabuzi as the halftime performer, and I also had to look up if this was a person or band. Story 10. When I realized that new hot young music stars would rise to prominence and then I would find out about them, it's weird discovering some new pop artist only to see that they have 80 million active monthly listeners on Spotify. Story 11. When I went to the optometrist after my 44th birthday and was told it's time for bifocals, getting reading glasses has helped a lot, but now I feel really old. Story 12. Training a new service person at work. She was fresh out of college, like 22 or 23 years old. We were talking, and I realized that I've been together with my wife for almost as long as this girl has been alive. Together 21 years, married 17, and I feel like I had a lot of experience before that. I'm only in my early 40s, damn it. Story 13. In Spanish-speaking countries, we have 2 ways of addressing people in the second person: formal and informal. When young adults started talking to me in the formal usted, I knew I was old. Story 14. I had reconnected with a woman whom I used to hook up with when we were younger, college age. We were talking after sex, and somehow the subject of round two came up. We were both laughing. Now at our age, nearly 40, it wasn't needed or even wanted anymore. It's kind of wild how things like that change, and you don't even think about it. Story 15. Looked in the mirror one day and realized my beard was almost entirely gray. I had gray hairs for a while. I am bald on top, cut my hair really short, but still have the vast majority of brown hair. That and gaining 15 pounds in about 2 to 3 weeks when I first got COVID-19. Sitting on my back for weeks straight, too exhausted to move, but still having my normal appetite. Yikes. Realized I could feel my belly bouncing when I walked. That motivated me into action, and I have been exercising 3 to 5 times a week since. It was not easy, but it paid off significantly. Story 16. In the late 2000s, I was with a bunch of my coworkers discussing some of the details of the Back to the Future trilogy. One of the part-time high school workers walked by and asked what we were talking about. We told him, and his response was, "Oh, I don't watch old movies." I thought, this is how it happens. I'm slowly becoming Abraham Simpson. I don't think this kid would even get that reference. Story 17. Was at the bookstore one day and just for some reason noticed the reading glasses and suddenly realized I couldn't read the whole sign next to them. So I put a pair on. Shoot. Story 18. When you start sitting down to pee at night so you don't have to turn the lights on, but sometimes end up urinating on yourself because your scrotum hangs lower every year. Story 19. I've played a lot of soccer growing up all the way through college. I would wake up the next day and be ready to go to the gym, practice, or a game. Now at 29, it takes me a couple of days to fully recover. Additionally, I am more prone to minor injuries and longer recovery time from those injuries as well. Story 20. Once I was born and had the capacity to understand that death was inevitable, I knew I was getting old. Of course, I had always hoped for major medical advancements to lengthen my life more than what the lifespan was at the time, but I always knew I was getting old as soon as I could think. Not sure I've ever been glad at any point in my life that I had been born. I would rather just not have to deal with the fear of death and all that. As far as a more stark moment goes, I like what that one person with the unusual sword or butcher's knife said in Jujutsu Kaisen about becoming an adult. Something like, becoming an adult is realizing that your favorite food is no longer for sale, that places you used to frequent are shut down now, and you can never experience them again. Then he was like, the accumulation of those little experiences is what makes one an adult. I thought it was pretty on point. Story 21. Lots of physical indicators, but I also understand the old and wise concept better now. I thought I knew everything in my 20s, and as I've grown older and faced more hardships, I handle things much differently, and my mind processes things with my brain and not so much with my feelings anymore. Story 22. I did a cartwheel and realized it really hurt. I was annoyed at the next-door neighbors playing loud music and looked at the clock and realized it was 8:30 p.m. Didn't make it to midnight for the 4th year in a row. I sprained my wrist 3 years ago and it still hurts. I naturally wake up before it's light outside. A night out, home by 9:30 p.m. with friends requires a 2-week recovery phase. Getting annoyed by teenagers in public. Getting annoyed when anyone is playing loud music anywhere. Also, funny story from a few weeks ago. My husband and I were talking about a violent crime in our smaller town, and he passionately says, "You know what they need to do? They really need to clean up the streets." We stared at each other, then started hysterically laughing because we were having a serious conversation and realized that's such a stereotypical old guy thing to say. Story 23. I got frustrated trying to order popcorn via my phone on the cinema website. They were making me order online, and it was weirdly difficult. I got frustrated and ended up having a, "Can I just speak to a real human?" Story 24. If I need to get on my hands and knees, I used to just drop down and spring back up to get onto my feet. These days, I lean on something to lower myself down and pull myself back up. I also used to sprint upstairs 2 at a time. Now I walk 1 at a time. I also can't tell which creaks more, the floorboards or my knees. Story 25. I heal much more slowly than I used to. At like 33, it all hit me. I realized that isn't old in the grander scheme, but it is the age I noticed a significant shift in how my body worked. Story 26. Having to focus on stretching before a workout or else I would pull something. I started getting annoyed at how long my warm-up was getting because I used to be able to just jump straight in without much of one. Story 27. When actors I've watched when I was young look old now. For me, it was Orlando Bloom. I remember when I watched him in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, he had smooth, flawless skin. Fast forward to that racing movie, he has wrinkles all over his face. Story 28. The stuff that used to anger me, I'm kind of just like, it's like my testosterone dropped. It's just too exhausting to get angry, which is probably good so I don't have a stroke or heart attack. Story 29. I caught an unexpected glance of my reflection. Before I registered it as a reflection, I noticed the wrinkles around the eyes, the gray in the beard, weathered skin. It was a real shock. I still feel 25 on the inside. That being said, I like myself a whole lot more now than I did then. Try to enjoy aging. The alternative is much worse. Story 30. I'm turning 32 in June, so I do not feel old yet, but I broke my leg really badly in 2023, and now I use a walking stick when I go outside. That makes me feel old. Story 31. I had this issue where my eye was getting stuck open. It was mildly concerning, and I couldn't figure out what was causing it. It would happen randomly, and I'd have to blink hard to get it to work. Eventually, I became worried I'd had a stroke or something and was having issues with muscular control, especially since it was happening more on my left side. I was very close to calling my doctor when I started noticing something weird at the top of my vision. Eventually, I figured out I was seeing my own eyebrows. That's when I realized my eyebrows were growing so long my eyelashes were getting tangled in them, which was what was making it feel like they were stuck open. I bought an eyebrow trimmer, and now whenever that starts happening or I see them in my vision, I trim my eyebrows and the issue goes away. Story 32. I'm not old, early 30s, but I don't relate to a lot of people in their early 20s and under in terms of pop culture and slang. I'm also realizing how immature, inexperienced, and ignorant a lot of them are and seeing myself in them, realizing how far I've come myself in that regard. I'm always still learning, though. Story 33. I realized that I couldn't remember the last time I wasn't at least a little bit tired. There's also the automatic whenever I get up from the couch or a chair. Story 34. When I needed reading glasses. The gray hairs that are sprouting up like wildfire. I have to sit on the bed for a few minutes because I get dizzy getting up too fast. Looking forward to being in bed by 8 or 9. I'm actually saying child. That's past my bedtime, when I want to catch something after 9. Getting up to go into another room and forgetting why. I started calling kids youngsters. Raisin Bran became one of my favorite cereals. I keep Tylenol 8-hour on hand. Perimenopause. Story 35. Aside from the aches and pains, I wake every 3 to 4 hours to pee and stay awake for the next hour trying to go back to sleep. I spend more time wishing I was sleeping than I actually sleep. Story 36. My eyesight has become terrible. I am 52 and my eyesight has rapidly decreased over the past year. I am now one of those people that cannot read the information on food packaging without glasses. Story 37. Started teaching. Doing the math. Oh, that song is 14 years old. And teenagers are honest. Damn, you're old. So it is. Called myself early 20s the other day. And my mom was like, dude, you're not even mid-20s, you're. My eyes go wide as I face reality. Late 20s. I know that doesn't sound old to others, but it's been odd for me. Suddenly gaining a bunch of weight. Can't drink a lot. Tired. Being called old all the time. It's been over a decade since the music I like was released. That too. Seeing some celebrity you used to like a lot and they look really decrepit and you think, huh? Since when? Story 38. When I dove into the water and raced a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds, I swam my best and kicked and kicked. Freestyle? No problem. Backstroke? No problem. Breaststroke? No problem. Butterfly? No problem. At 25 years old, after a back injury and quitting smoking, I still placed in the top 3 in 2 events. I don't care, those kids are monsters, some of them on their way to the Olympics. I'm honored to have swam among them. The kids on my team were joking that I'm an old man, and I would tell them not to drink so much when we went out or stop stressing over drama. I mean, they're not really kids if they can buy their own drinks, but I saw the dumb decisions I made way back when and I called it how I saw it. Got teammates to go to practice when other things weren't working out, and seeing them get gold felt different. I raced one of the experienced swimmers, and he told me how I should have started competitively when I was younger and I would have been a monster. It wasn't meant to be, and that's all right. Nothing makes you feel old like competitive sports. Once you get beat up, that's it, you're done. Late 20s is old, man. You bust yourself and get silver and feel sore at the end, but these kids look like they could swim another race right away. It's humbling. And then you graduate and just like that, you're not allowed to go back on campus as an alumnus because of COVID. Before COVID, alumni could come onto campus and go to the libraries with no problem. It's been years since quarantine and still, alumni can't go back on campus. It really makes you feel chewed up and spit out.